The Republican gubernatorial candidate makes a stop in the old Pueblo and shares his thoughts for the future of Arizona.
People come here from all around the country and all around the world because of our quality of life. That's our brand, and I want to project that out to the other 49 states and to our largest trading partners.
Plus, 2 debates in 1 week and how Hispanics will play a role in the upcoming election.
In Arizona, we know that by 2035, the state will be a majority Hispanic. I think that's a resounding message that every candidate hears.
This is Arizona Week. Doug Ducey is the treasurer of Arizona. He's also the Republican candidate for Arizona governor. Hot on the campaign trail, Mr. Ducey made several stops throughout southern Arizona in recent weeks, including a visit to the Pima Community College Aviation Center in Tucson. Here's the first part of my interview with him, conducted last week. Doug, thanks for making time for us in your schedule here in Tucson.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Thank you. Let's get right to it. The economy is kind of your platform this campaign. If you get elected, big budget deficit probably awaits you. People want to know, how do you fix that?
Well, step one is to kickstart our economy. There's nothing like a growing economy to fix budget concerns. So the more job creation and growth we can have here in the state, the more tax revenues we create, the better it is to close that budget gap. So the first focus is going to be on the economy, and then we're going to look at that budget year by year and do everything we can to control costs.
So for people who are sitting at home and watching this and thinking, okay, income tax, what happens to it? Where does it go and how does that work for me?
Well, we want Arizona to be the best possible state in the nation in which to do business. I want our existing local companies to be expanding. I want companies that are out of state to be looking to Arizona as the perfect place in which to do business. So we want to start by simplifying our tax code. We want to stop any regulations that are killing jobs or adding cost. And we want to lower the liability in the state so that we can have the small business owner grow and we can have hardworking Arizonans being able to find a job and build a fulfilling career. A governor can help build that type of an environment, and that's what I want to do all across the state and specifically in southern Arizona.
As many of us know, Tesla did not pick Arizona for its new site. Places like this that really focus on STEM. So how do you encourage the legislature to start giving programs like Pima more money so they can produce those jobs that we need in this state?
I think the legislature needs to see places like Pima Community College and see the training that goes on here and how these graduates go right across the jetway here to find a job, and they go from being a student and someone that likely is going into debt or working their way through college here to someone who's a productive citizen who has a job and begins investing in their future and building a career. I really applaud Pima Community College and what they're doing here in terms of the STEM activity and the technological training that's helping our economy here in Arizona.
You've made comments about the budget and education not being a place that you want to cut from. So where do you make cuts in the existing budget right now where you say, we're going to have to make some tough decisions?
Well, education is of the utmost importance. If you're going to have a growing economy, you don't just focus on taxes and regulation. You have to have our K-12 students with skills so that when they graduate, they can go into the workforce or go on to higher learning. What I want to do is look at the 80+ agencies that already report directly to the governor. I want to see how we can make our government more effective, more efficient, and more accountable to the taxpayer. There's a lot of things we can look at, including 27% of the state's current workforce in government is eligible for retirement in the next 4 years. So I think just through disciplined hiring and the use of new technology, we can have a budget that's easier to manage and put more resources into education.
Does that mean layoffs, not filling some vacancies? What does that look like?
Oh, that isn't talking about layoffs. That's talking about people as they retire. How do we restructure our government and use technology so that we're creating jobs in the private sector, making the private sector and the economy larger rather than having a larger, more expensive government.
What are you most disappointed about when it comes to Arizona's education system?
Well, I think education across the country is underperforming. And what I want to see Arizona, the business community, the education community, and the champions of education get together and talk about how we focus on results and outcomes in the classroom. I think if we can have our dollars going to classroom resources. So they're supporting a teacher teaching and students learning. We're going to have continual improvement year over year that'll better serve our students, and they'll be graduating with real skills so that they can head into the workforce or on to college.
How do kids in border towns like Douglas get the same education that some of those premier schools in Phoenix are getting?
We want to focus on the fundamentals. Believe it or not, in Nogales, they're providing an excellent education in many places right now. But it really is that focus on high expectations, supporting the good teachers we already have in the classroom, and then looking what we can do with these funding formulas so that they go to focus more on results and outcomes. And also there's no substitute for a leadership position in the office of principal or superintendent that will make the proper personnel decisions so that we make sure that learning is happening inside the classroom.
Do you provide incentives for new graduates from major universities to come to teach in Arizona?
Well, I think whenever we have some great teachers already. And it really is the teacher you want to focus and honor. They're the ones that make the difference inside the classroom, but we're going to grow as a state. So we'll need more good teachers. And yes, we'd like to bring people from all around the country that want to do that great work, that produce citizens of the future. So that's something that will be part of our education reform package.
Talking about kids and the crisis we saw with Child Protective Services this past spring, what would you have done if you were governor at that time?
Well, I think you act when you see something like that. It's a leadership position, and the first role of our government is to take care of the most vulnerable. And I want Arizona to be the safest state in the country for children. So I applaud that we've taken CPS and turned it into Department of Child Safety, and it reports directly at a cabinet level position to the governor. I think that's a good start. Now we want to make sure that we have it going in the right direction so that these vulnerable children are finding loving foster homes and adoption when appropriate, but that we protect them.
Doug Ducey made a name for himself as CEO and co-founder of the ice cream chain Cold Stone Creamery. Born and raised in Ohio, the graduate of Arizona State University is also an entrepreneurial fellow from the Eller College of Business Management at the University of Arizona. Here's the second part of my interview with Mr. Ducey. You've really been reaching out to the Hispanic community, also talking about trade with Mexico. Where do you see that relationship going if you're governor?
Well, I think we're fortunate in Arizona to be a border state. I think this is exactly where you'd like to be in 2014. We're the front door to the international economy in a Mexican economy that is growing. They're our neighbor, they're our largest trading partner ×4. I want to maximize that, and I think that'll provide good, high-paying jobs on this side of the border that turn into fulfilling careers. It's time to jumpstart our economy, and Southern Arizona is perfectly positioned to do it.
A different element of border, do you think the border's secure?
No, the border is not secure. There's still work to be done on the border. Our federal government has left Arizona wide open and unprotected in many places, but that's an issue that in many ways is exclusive of our trade relationships through the Mariposa Port and the trading partners, the trucking, the tourism, the transit that we already have. Let's focus on that and maximize that, and then let's deal with our border issues, both with our federal government and what we can do at the state level.
Are you concerned about the image of Arizona and how immigration plays a role in that respect?
I want to take our image. I think we've got a great place to live, work, play, recreate, retire, visit, and in many places get an education. I want that to be the way the rest of the country sees us. People come here from all around the country and all around the world because of our quality of life. That's our brand, and I want to project that out to the other 49 states and to our largest trading partners.
You've been doing some traveling around the state. Here in Tucson, though, there seems to be some idea that maybe you're not coming to Southern Arizona as much as you should. How do you respond to criticisms like that?
Well, I think I spent more time in Southern Arizona than any other candidate. We were very proud of our result in the primary election. I think we doubled our next closest competitor in terms of votes. So I'm running to be governor of all the people, and good ideas come from more than just one county. I'm going to be spending a lot of time in Pima County and Southern Arizona, not only as this campaign unfolds, but if I'm successful and as your governor.
How do you grow the economy in rural Arizona?
Well, It's the same principles as how you grow it in metropolitan areas. It's about a simple and fair tax code. It's about light regulation and low liability on the business owner and the citizen. And then you make our state the most attractive state in the nation in which to do business. Some of our business owners will want to move to urban areas. Other ones will want to move to rural areas. But step one is to make sure that our existing businesses are growing and have the best possible conditions in which to grow the prosperity of their workforce and hire.
Do you think education plays a role in that for these businesses wondering, should I start up business in Wilcox when the education system there might not be great?
Well, absolutely. These are all of our kids in all of our classrooms in every one of our counties. So there isn't some county that should get special treatment or some school district that should get special treatment. We should focus on these children in the classroom and supporting their teachers so they're getting a year of growth for a year of seat time, whether they're in a rural area or whether they're in metropolitan Tucson.
You have 3 boys. Do they go to public school?
My boys go to Catholic schools.
So why not put them in public? I think some parents are in that position where they say, you know, it's worth it to go private.
Yes, I'm running to be governor of everyone, so we're going to be supportive of our public K-12, our public charters, and the Catholic schools reinforce the values my wife and I have at home, and I'm a product of Catholic schools, and that's where, as parents, we choose to send our kids.
During the campaign trail, you've taken some heat for your history with Cold Stone Creamery and maybe some of these franchises. How do you respond to that for people who are thinking, maybe this isn't the right guy to make the business decisions for this state?
Well, Cold Stone Creamery is an American success story. I'm proud that it started right here in Arizona. We created thousands of jobs at Cold Stone Creamery, and we had hundreds and hundreds of franchisees, Oro wheat bread truck drivers, fire captains, people that were displaced in the hospitality industry. Many of them took out loans to start their businesses. Did all of them succeed? You know, this is America. What's guaranteed is opportunity. And the overwhelming majority of them succeeded around the country, and now it's a brand that's known in 25 countries around the world. A lot of good Arizonans built that company, and a lot of good Arizonans work there today. It's something I'm incredibly proud of.
We have just a few weeks left before the campaign. What is your mindset moving forward? How do you become the next governor?
Well, I want to get out. If you say you're going to be governor of all the people, I want to get out and talk to Arizonans of every background. I want to bring solutions to kickstart our economy and to fix and improve our K-12 system. These aren't Republican solutions or Democrat solutions. These are Arizona common sense solutions. And I'm going to apply my background as a businessman to focus on results and outcomes and measurements that will better serve our citizens and result in a better quality of life.
And you heard Doug Ducey talk about his outreach to the Hispanic community. Here with me to talk about the Hispanic vote in Arizona are Leah Marquez Peterson, President and CEO of the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and Ernesto Portillo Jr., editor of La Estrella de Tucson. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Leah, let's start with you in the Tucson Hispanic Chamber. Some numbers about the people in Arizona who classify as Hispanic and then are registered to vote.
No, absolutely. So the Tucson Hispanic Chamber partners every year with the Arizona Hispanic Chamber to produce an event called Datos Tucson. Datos means data. The event was just last week, and we talked about a lot of exciting Hispanic demographic changes, trends that are occurring, and certainly about the importance of the Latino voter. In Tucson, there are about 120,000 registered voters that are Latino. But I think, and probably Ernesto would agree, we have a long way to go.
And Ernesto, those numbers, I mean, kind of bleak considering the population of Pima County.
The numbers are down, no question. And there's a lot of work to be done, as Leah mentioned. Her organization, as well as other organizations, for example, Mi Familia Vota, My Family Votes, have ramped up their voter registration outreach. Still, the numbers of Latino voters is large and significant in this state and across the country, as we saw in the last few elections. And the numbers will continue to increase just by the sheer demographic change, and Latinos cannot be ignored as they may have been in the past. And certainly gubernatorial candidates, Mr. Duval and Mr. Ducey, are well aware of this.
So moving forward, as we see the candidates hot on the campaign trail here with just a few weeks left before the election, fair to say that both of them are reaching out, or is it still too early to tell? Leah, we'll start with you.
I think I've seen both of them reaching out. I mean, you certainly hear about one meeting with different Spanish faith-based groups, Spanish-dominant faith-based groups, or doing advertising in English and in Spanish, reaching the Hispanic market. So I would say both campaigns are pretty aware. I mean, in Arizona, we know that by 2035, the state will be a majority Hispanic. I think that's a resounding message that every candidate hears. And there was data I looked up actually for this interview from the Morrison Institute that said by 2030, 25% of registered voters will be Hispanic. So I think regardless of party or candidate or position they're running for, they should be paying particular attention to the importance of the Hispanic vote.
Lorraine, as they reach out to the Latino community, and not just the gubernatorial candidates, but in this case, Duval and Ducey, they both have challenges, of course. For the Republican, Ducey, his challenge is to overcome the image that the Republican Party in general has in the Latino community as being anti-Latino, anti-immigrant. SB 1070 still hangs over the Republican Party and Mr. Ducey, so he has to somehow distance himself, and it doesn't help when Sheriff Joe Arpaio of Maricopa County, who's notorious within the Latino community, endorses Mr. Ducey. On the other hand, Mr. Duval, although he's a Democrat and most Latinos are registered Democrats and tend to vote Democrat, with the issue of immigration on the national scene, with President Obama not moving forward with executive decisions that he can make on immigration, many Latinos just might sit this election out and thus damage any chance that Mr. Duval would have in the state race. But it remains to be seen how the two candidates position themselves on these issues.
Yeah, and I'd agree that both parties are facing challenges. Certainly, from the Democratic side, the immigration debate happening at the federal level, and the perception of the Republican Party on the other side. What's interesting, though, with the political party affiliation, Ernesto's right. A majority of Hispanics are Democrat. Even specifically here in Tucson, you've got about 56% Democrat here in Tucson, 16% Republican. But what's interesting is 28% are undecided. So independent. So I think that particular segment of Latino voters is really up for grabs. I think that's the particular voter that all the candidates should be focused on.
Why have we traditionally seen Hispanics vote Democrat versus Republican, Ernesto?
Well, if you look at these surveys, which mirrors the general population, Latinos perceive the Republicans as favoring business, as favoring a certain group, certain class. And in recent years, the Republican Party has been very intransigent on the question of immigration, and Latino community in general feels as a victim of Republican rhetoric, Republican policies. Again, SB 1070 and other issues. But within the Latino community generally, while immigration is a big issue nationally and statewide, Latinos would prefer and feel it's more important to hear about employment, jobs, job training, and education and health. These are issues that are far more important in all surveys within the Latino community.
Leah, would you agree that those are some of the key issues that really separate the parties when it comes to that vote?
I think that it's interesting. I think generationally, a lot of the Latino families have been Democrat, and then it just kind of carries down through the generations. But you do see a lot of Latino business owners in particular becoming Republican or certainly independent, or paying attention to a lot of the votes and the issues coming up. Actually, some of the data shows the #1 issue for Latino voters is education, followed by jobs in the economy, followed in a third by immigration. So it's interesting when you see a lot of different candidates go immediately to the immigration issue and talk to us about that particular thing, when in reality we want to talk about affordable tuition for college. We want to talk about vocational ed or job training. We'd like to talk about jobs in the economy and the impact on our businesses and our employers in many cases. And I think that should be the resounding conversation that we're having in the state.
You've both talked about immigration. Ernesto, how big of a role does it play when the candidates are stating the facts on their issues as they see it moving forward?
Within the Latino community?
Absolutely.
It doesn't play much of an issue unless a candidate comes out and says, I'm going to close the border, or I'm going to enforce SB 1070, or anything that sounds strident, anything that sounds as anti-Latino, anti-immigrant, then it becomes critical. But if they talk about immigration in a sense of welcoming people, let's accommodate dreamers, for example, then that will be heard with much greater favorable reception within the Latino community.
The three of the candidates were here this past week for a debate that your organization, the Tucson Hispanic Chamber, helped put on, Leah. And they did talk about Dreamers, and gubernatorial candidate Doug Ducey has said that he would keep in place Governor Brewer's stance on licenses for Dreamers. Mr. Duval and Mr. Hess both disagree. So do people in that audience hear that and think that's going to be what I base my decision off of?
They do. I mean, the audience at that particular event that was also co-hosted by the YWCA and the Jewish Community Relations Council wasn't a primarily Latino crowd, I wouldn't say, but I think the Dreamers are a very big issue for our community. I know as a chamber we have advocated for better tuition levels for Dreamer students, and certainly driver's licenses for Dreamer students is something we support from an employer perspective. So I think those conversations are important, in the big scale of different issues that they're looking at, certainly. But from an immigration perspective, during the primary, you certainly heard a lot of talk about border security. I'm very happy to see in this general election more conversations surrounding employability, number of visas that are allocated to that area. Just a lot of talk around trade with Mexico. You heard both candidates, both Duval and Ducey, talk during the last debate that we hosted about the importance of Mexico. And that's a key pillar for our Chamber of Commerce. We want to talk about the $7 billion that Arizona is currently doing in trade with Mexico and how we can grow that to be more competitive with states like Texas and California. So very excited to see that conversation happening.
Okay, and Ernesto is the editor of your publication. Do you see an effort by either party to really ramp up exposure?
Not through La Estrella, I don't. They haven't come forth with any advertising, which I find surprising. Given the importance of Latino vote. They have turned to television, which is understandable, but they haven't gone through all Spanish language media, which is critical, and it's going to hurt them at some point, I believe. But they do need to do more outreach within the Latino community, not just through television advertising and 30-second snippets, but actually press the flesh, meet the people, and talk to people in the community of Tucson and Southern Arizona. It doesn't help when Mr. Ducey doesn't show up at some of the debates here in town.
When it comes to the end of it, when we head to the polls in November, what are we thinking? How important will that Hispanic vote be on that day? Leah, we'll start with you.
I hope it's very important, but I mean, I think the viewing audience today on your show and other shows that I know Ernesto and I probably both participate in, it's talking about the importance of Latinos being of voting, of looking at the issues, and understanding who the candidates are. There are a number of voter education websites out there. One in particular our chamber promotes is votaaz.org. It doesn't endorse any candidates. It's really about who the candidates are and how you'd get out the vote. And there are groups like Mi Familia Vota and others that are going door to door helping spread the word. I hope there's a great impact from the Latino vote in this next election. Time will tell. I think there are a lot of different groups working on that.
Ernesto, would you agree?
Yes, and one last note on that is that the Latino community, like the general population, is voting through mail, voting ahead of time in greater numbers than the community has in the past. So going to the polls, yes, it's traditional, and many people still do, but more Latinos are voting with an early balloting.
Okay, well, thank you both for your analysis. Very interesting. I suppose we'll have answers pretty soon here. Thank you again.
Thank you.
The Buzz now with my colleague Christopher Conover. And Christopher, two debates in Pima County just this past week. Of course, the newsmaker in one of them is that the Republican candidate, Doug Ducey, did not attend.
We've had two debates down here, and the Ducey campaign has agreed to a number of debates throughout this campaign season, but only one down here in Southern Arizona, and that's now come and gone. The second debate was the three other candidates, Fred Duval, Barry Hess, and John Mueller, were in attendance at that one. So yes, the news out of the second one, the initial news was even before it began, no Doug Ducey.
Okay, but a big talker during that first debate where Mr. Ducey was of course the economy, part of his platform. That's something that everyone is going to face regardless of who ends up being the candidate this time.
No matter who wins this race, there are a number of big economic issues that are waiting out there for them. 2 days after the election, the state Supreme Court will hear the case, the appeal of the case, on how much money the state owes K-12 in inflation payments that weren't made. Whomever wins this race will have to deal with that. The question is, will one of them actually be at the argument, even though they won't be governor? They could be governor-elect if the counting is finished by then. There are also tax issues. Arizona is about 10% below on tax collections where they were at their peak before the recession, which means we don't have so much money to deal with as we did in 2007. There is a looming $800 million deficit about 2 fiscal years out coming up. Again, the next governor will have to deal with all of these issues upon taking office.
Okay, let's listen in on some of that debate talk regarding the economy.
The idea of a monorail going from top to bottom in Arizona up the middle of the interstates, I-10 and I-17, so we don't have to take any land by eminent domain, and it'll be all privately funded with the state sharing in the profits. And that's just one of 6 different plans that I have to revitalize the economy and to balance the budget.
Look at the rainy day fund initially. That will be a part of the first step. We'll need to look at state trust land reform and sales as a second step. But ultimately, what we have to do more than anything else is grow our economy, grow jobs, get our economy back on track. Arizona has traditionally been laid into recessions and quick out of the recessions. Not this time. We need to recognize that this is fundamentally different.
Specifically, I would work to legalize hemp because we have a big industry waiting to take place here in Arizona once we legalize. Once that's legalized, we can bring in the aerospace, motorsports, entertainment industry. We need that office, so I would actually like to reinstate that office, make it bigger and better than ever. That'll also bring into manufacturing, kind of all these groups will. And everything that I've worked on for the past 25 years has been the research, boots on the ground, across Arizona, throughout the state.
Okay, and that's a debate that did not feature, obviously, Doug Ducey. But Christopher, talking about as we continue on, get a little bit closer to the big day here, there's a lot of spending going on for these candidates as well.
There is a lot of spending. The big day, election day, is of course in November, but early ballots go out October 10th. So voting can begin as early as October 11th in Arizona, and that is right around the corner. Lots and lots of outside spending. More than $1 million has been spent against Fred Duval, against him by outside groups in the last month. Both candidates are up on TV, Duval and Ducey, with plenty of ads, and there are lots of outside groups going against both candidates. But the big push right now is against Duval. Interestingly enough, most polls still have that race neck and neck between Ducey and Duval within 2 or 3 points. We had one new poll come out this week that had Ducey up by 6. It was by the Free Enterprise Club, which had backed Ducey in the primary. So we wonder about it a little bit. There was another poll that was by an outside group that's backing Duval that has them within 2 points. But most polls still have this pretty close, and a good number of undecided coming into early voting.
Okay, this will be down to the wire, I'm sure. Christopher
Absolutely.
Conover, thank you. And that's our program. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to tune in next week as I sit down with the mayors of Tucson and Phoenix. We'll also continue to provide an analysis of the upcoming election. For all of us here at Arizona Week, I'm Lorraine Rivera.